Well, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, everybody, for joining our session. Just to make sure, this session is about customizing Acumatica best practices. And with me today, by the way, I'm Patricia Bennett, the founder and CEO of Bennett Solutions. And with me today, I have Paul Purcell, who's our Director of Development. So he knows all this stuff. I'm just here to introduce us mostly. So anyways, I hope you guys are ready because we have some really good information here. So here we go. First of all, this session is being sponsored by Aldrich e-commerce for distribution and manufacturers. Aldrich is proud to sponsor today's session with PC Bennett. Are you looking for a reliable e-commerce solution tailored specifically for distributors and manufacturers? At Aldrich Web Solutions, we've got everything you need for seamless e-commerce integrations. Our all-in-one platform integrates seamless with Acumatica, offering real-time data, customer-specific pricing, and user-friendly features designed for the top demands of your distribution manufacturing clients. Whether you're looking to streamline operations or expand your offerings, their solution is built to support your business. Visit their booth after this session to learn more, and there's a chance for you guys to win $300 Amazon gift card. So please go visit our sponsor. And with that, we're going to get started. So just real quick, who is PC Bennett? PC Bennett is Acumatica exclusive partner. We were one of the first partners of Acumatica. It started back in 2010 on version 2.1 of Acumatica. We're also an ISV, and we are a 22-year-old company, but as of 2014, we sold the Microsoft practice and became 100% Acumatica. If you ever need to reach us, there'll be contact information at the end. So that's who we are. So here's the big question. When should we customize? So it really depends on the gaps. Hopefully, Acumatica will cover 80% or more of your requirements to run your business. But if there's something that out of the box, it really doesn't work, then you may start thinking about customizations. You may also want to integrate Acumatica with other systems or automate certain processes. But the truth is, you always have to think, is the cost of the customization really worth what you're going to get out of it? So if it's absolutely necessary to customize Acumatica, absolutely go for it. But there's workarounds that work, it could be better, then you may want to make sure that the situation is such that you do want to customize. There are 3 types of customizations. There are changes that you can do directly through the UI, and we'll go through that. There is what Acumatica calls the no-code, low-code, or low-code, no-code. And then there's the actual changes to the application. And depending on what the requirements are, you would do one of those 3. So with that, Paul is going to start describing the first one, changes through the UI. Paul, it's all yours.
Thank you, Patricia, and nice to see all of the faces in here and see a few that I know who you are, so always comforting to see that. So the first customization in Acumatica, or type of customization that you have, are the personalization changes that you can make through the UI. I think most of the people from the poll that I saw are existing Acumatica users or customers. So you're probably familiar with going through personalization, adapting Acumatica to make it look and feel a little bit more how you like to work. So that's really the entry level of customization. We're really not going to focus in on that one for this session. Patricia, next slide.
So the next one that you want to know what it is the low code, no code customization. So Paul, what is low code, no code?
So that's a great question. With Acumatica, you have this great feature and great tool set for being able to go into Acumatica without being a software developer and make changes to Acumatica. Now, this is not operating really at the layer of the application. It's a little bit above that layer. And so really the customizations that you're going through that don't have code, you're sort of insulated from getting yourself into a lot of problems. Now you can still do some damage if you don't build it right or design it right, but there's a great set of tools that you can use to build these customizations that don't require a developer.
And then last but not least, talk to us about changes to the actual application. This is when you have to customize Acumatica and you have to create new screens or use new code to accomplish whatever it is that you're looking for.
Exactly. So whenever we talk about customizing Acumatica, really we immediately ask, okay, are we changing the application? Are we taking the car into the shop and opening up the hood and getting into the motor? And that's really what the focus of this session is for, is to really talk about what happens and what are the best practices as far as taking that car into the shop and getting into the motor.
So you're going to tell us about those best practices, I assume?
You betcha. So before you can really get into, and I'm not saying before you can, because anybody can get into and start doing development, but before you should start doing development work within Acumatica, you really need to understand Acumatica's framework. And if you've done any software development, you understand that it's an application system. So you have the user interface, you have a certain business logic layer. This is all of the rules, the business rules that you have within Acumatica. But after that, you really start getting down into really, again, opening up that hood and getting into the motor where you're accessing the data access layer or the DACs that anybody who's familiar with Acumatica, you constantly hear of the acronym DAC. That is actually really the layer that you're going to be interfacing with probably the most. The next layer is getting down to the database layer. If you have worked with Acumatica and you've done customizations and you've had to go to Acumatica for support, they will immediately ask you, well, are you actually modifying the database directly? That is sort of a no-no. Your developers might be getting into the database, they might do that, but we definitely want to avoid making changes at the database layer. It's really not a sustainable practice. So we want to operate, and Acumatica provides the layers for us to be able to do that. So that's the Acumatica framework. As far as a best practice to customizations, anybody who's done software development, you're going to have most likely employed a similar approach, which is you go through a discovery, gather the requirements, as Patricia mentioned at the very beginning, making sure that the juice is worth the squeeze on that. Are you really should be doing the customization? Sometimes you actually determine that, hey, you know what? Let's use standard Acumatica processes without customizing it. But let's say you've gone through that. You've determined that, yes, we need to make that customization change. So then you roll into the design. And I'm actually going to combine the design, develop, and testing really into the same iterative phase. And the reason why I do that is because a lot of times when you're developing a customization, you're actually needing to do it in chunks where you design, develop, and test a certain feature within your customization. You go through that, and by the end of doing all of those, building all of those features, you should have gone through multiple iterations of that. Once you have all of that finished and it's tested, it's validated that it actually meets the original requirements, that it produces the expected outcome, then you plan the deployment.
So one thing that from my high level perspective that I have seen issues with customizations that have been done to Acumatica by other people is that, let's say, for example, they want to change something on the bills and adjustment screen, so something to do with vendors, and they want to change a particular feature of the vendor, but they're not looking at all the different areas in the system that that vendor touches the system. So one thing that we strongly recommend is that if you're modifying a particular screen, think of every place that that particular key field is touching the system in general.
And that's a great point, Patricia, that validating that the changes that you're making not only work, but actually don't have a negative impact on the rest of the functionality, which, as we all know, Acumatica isn't a series of independent little islands of automation. It's actually a system that everything is working in sync together. So that leads us into a few different tools and tips that PC Bennett we've done in all of our development work with Acumatica. So an important tool is to have a source control system. And this could be called a version control system, Git. There's various different flavors out there, if you will. But ultimately, you want to have a system that tracks all of the customizations that you're doing. It's actually not difficult to customize, even get into the application and make changes to it. What is not necessarily more difficult, but takes more time, is to actually document that, to track that. And I'll talk about this, I'll return back to this to explain a little bit why it's important to do this, and why customizations that are often done at the no-code, low-code level don't take this always into consideration, because you're looking for the quick win, you're looking for the quick satisfaction of building that customization and then being done with it. Well, when we're making changes to the application, we definitely have to keep track of that. The next item, AI. We're all familiar with AI. I don't know how many of you have used ChatGPT or another AI tool. You probably have, and maybe you haven't even known about it. Everything is just pervasively influenced by AI now. AI is a fantastic augmenting tool for developers. We use it at PC Bennett. Now, the fear that I think a lot of software developers have, or maybe outsiders have, is that it's going to replace software developers. Well, I don't see it, and I don't think any of the industry leaders see the replacement of software developers with AI. How we use it in-house is that when we're actually doing building a customization, developing it, we get to the end or near the end, and we feel that, okay, we've built the customization to meet the needs, to fulfill the requirements, but let's actually use AI to see if we can optimize our code. So we'll go through, throw it into the AI bucket, into the AI engine, and typically it'll spit back a bunch of recommendations to us. And we'll go through and we'll implement the ones that make sense. A lot of times it's maybe splitting hairs, so it's not as much of a value add. So we'll actually just kind of avoid that. It's not really necessarily bringing anything to the bottom line or creating an additional return. So we'll use it for that, but also we'll use it for understanding how Acumatica works in a specific area. Again, we can work with consultants. We can talk to various different people, but maybe some of those subject matter experts aren't available, and we want to just quickly be able to see, okay, when we release a shipment, what happens to that particular document in the system? And AI is a great tool for that. So if you are planning on doing software development, I highly recommend that you subscribe and pay for a AI service out there. It's fantastic. Next item, Test SDK. The Test SDK, Acumatica has done a great job in providing us developers with a feature that allows us to write a test program and have that included in our customization. That's great for the development process, but also for the maintenance of that customization. What we've done is we've gone through, and some of our customizations that are much more complex and involved, we don't want to pay our high cost developers to be creating sales orders all the time, right? When they go through the iterations of testing, they could be creating hundreds of orders. Well, we want to actually leverage that Test SDK to automatically create these orders as we're going through and doing another iteration of testing. It's a great time saver. It adds dollars back to the bottom line, and it saves our clients a lot of money since we don't have to do that. And we do testing, so it's not like if you don't do testing, you don't have that. So it's a wash. So that's a great feature. The last item I have is making a decision whether or not to consolidate all of your customizations into a single customization project. This is a feature that is sort of unique to Acumatica, and it allows you to combine multiple customizations into a single project. The reason why you would want to do that, and the reason why we do it, is because it simplifies the publishing process. If you've ever gone into an Acumatica site and you've taken a look at the customization project page and you see multiple pages on that, you know you have a lot of customizations, and it is painful to get all of those customizations working together. So we consolidate a lot of our customizations, but there's also reasons for not doing that, and you can look into that. I think we're running out a little bit of time here, but you can take a look at that.
So if you want to customize your software, you must.
The number one thing that, and actually I have a bunch of number one things, but the number one thing for this session is setting up a test environment. And when I say setting up a test environment, I'm not talking about setting up a test tenant. And if you're new to Acumatica, a tenant is synonymous with company in a lot of other ERP systems. And you know that it's similar because you reference it the same way. I'm logging into the test tenant or test company. In Acumatica, you want to, if you're making modifications to the application, you want to have an isolated independent test environment where it's a separate IIS site or application and separate database. You don't want to have it commingled. This allows you to test your customization in isolation without impacting your production environment. That is super important because I can tell you, if you're modifying the sales order process or the invoice process and you interfere with that, you're going to get a call from the CFO, and they're going to be just all up in your grill saying, hey, how come we can't collect money? Oops, we were doing some development work and we accidentally broke that. You don't want to have those conversations. It's not great, not a good resume builder. And so let's actually keep that separate. Let's have a separate environment. And this dovetails into the big thing. Always test and then do more testing.
So one thing that I'll confess, we just upgraded our own internal software, and we forgot to turn off the Avalara integration. And I personally went and processed some transactions because there was something that needed to be fixed, and I wanted to make sure it was fixed. Believe me, it took me a whole day with our controller to clean up the mess that we created testing. So make sure that you turn off Avalara, that you turn off email, the capabilities of emailing your customers, and any kind of automations that are going to touch the outside world, turn them off. I've been an Acumatica partner for 14 years now. Here I am making the mistakes that we tell our customers not to make. So just keep it in mind that it happens to the best of us. So make sure you turn off all the automations and anything that touches the outside world when you're testing should be turned off. And with that, we really want to thank you for your time. We so appreciate it. If you have any questions, do we have any time for questions, David?
You are 1 minute over time, but it doesn't look like you actually have any questions. You got a lot of thumbs up and celebrations, and you've got about 80 people in the room. So I would give them another chance to find you somewhere else, though.
Well, here's our email addresses. As you can see, I am not the person who really has all the knowledge, so you can go ahead and email Paul instead. But our email addresses are there, and we're always happy to help customers and partners that need help. Thank you so much, and let's go to the next session.